Okay, good evening to you all. I'm calling our first meeting of the new year to order, our January 3rd regular scheduled business meeting this evening. Thank you all for being here, and I want to thank the council, everybody being here present this evening. Take a moment just to extend to all of you my good wishes for a good year in the year of 2022. We can always hope that some things will be better than they were in 21, and I guess that challenges all of us to try to be better in the coming year as well. So your town government will be busy for the coming year with any number of matters, and so we will be working steadily and having regular meetings. So again, thanks for all being here this evening. Look forward to covering our agenda. All right, so the first thing we'll do is ask our clerk, if she will, to call the roll.
Mayor Marshburn?
I'm present.
Mayor Pro Tem Vance?
Present.
Councilmember Dellinger?
Here.
Councilmember Matthews?
Here.
Councilmember Singleton?
Here.
And Councilmember Behringer?
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Gibson. I'm now going to recognize Councilmember Phil Matthews, who will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance and also in our invocation. Mr. Matthews.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May be seated.
Let us pray. Oh, merciful and heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this new year. Thank you for getting us through 2020. Lord, we pray for wisdom as council members that we deliberate issues that concern our town and help us to make wise choices. Lord, I pray for our military. I pray for our country and all of our families, Lord. Keep us safe. Keep us out of harm's way. And we'll give you the praise and glory. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Matthews. All right, we're going to go right into the section called Petitions and Comments. If there's anyone here this evening who desires to make petitions and comments, we receive those from the public on items not included in the regular agenda. Ideally, citizens should sign up with the town clerk prior to the start of the meeting, so the council is interested in hearing your concerns but may not take action or deliberate on subject matters brought up during the Petitions and Comments segment. Topics requiring further investigation will be referred to the appropriate town official or staff and may be scheduled for a future agenda. Ms. Clerk, I don't believe I have a list of anybody. Do you? There's no one who signed up in advance, right? Okay. So is there anyone here who came for that express purpose and desires to address the council at this time? If so, if you'll let me know by raising your hand. Okay. See none. All right. Thank you very much. We will now go to the item E, which is the adoption of the agenda. And council, before you vote on that, I need to mention that our finance director has asked that we add one business item. I guess we'll put that over at the end. It'll be information from him regarding the annual audit and some cost adjustments for that. So if you will note that added item. Other than that, unless there's anyone else who needs to make a change to the agenda, I will entertain a motion at this time.
So moved. Second.
Okay, thank you. Motion made and properly seconded. Any questions? Hearing none. If you favor adoption of the agenda, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? There is none. Thank you very much. Presentations, none to my knowledge. None, Mr. Manager or Madam Clerk. Okay, thank you. Okay, Council, you see the consent agenda. There are two items there, and unless a council member desires to pull a item from that agenda, I will ask for a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Matthews, seconded by Ms. Behringer. All in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Okay, if there's any opposition, there is none. Thank you very much. Okay. All right, we're going to go right into our public hearings. We have two of those this evening, and so we will go to item one. As we prepare for that particular hearing, I need to remind all of us present of the fact that this is a quasi-judicial hearing, which means that all persons who wish to appear must be sworn prior to giving testimony or answering questions. Under state law, the parties are entitled to a fair hearing, and so I must ask our council members if any of them have a fixed opinion prior to the hearing that is not subject to change, or if they have had ex parte communications, or do you have any close familial, business, or other associational relationship with an affected person, or have a financial interest in the outcome? If so, now would be a good time to make that known. Are there any, counsel? Okay, there are none. Thank you very much. You're reminded that this is a fact-finding hearing, and only competent material and substantial evidence that is not repetitive is allowed. Only expert witnesses based on training and experience may testify as to impacts on property values, traffic safety, or noise levels. Council members are only allowed to receive factual information during this hearing and are not allowed to discuss the case outside of this hearing. Any questions from council members? Hearing none, I will then open the initial hearing after I have sworn in those persons who wish to testify in public hearing special use permit modification CUP SP 1807M21-01, the Timber Professional Park. So if you're here for that, if you would see the clerk back there and be sworn at this time, that would be a proper thing to do. Okay, thank you so very much. I'm going to formally open this public hearing, and I will call on, I believe it's Mr. Triesenberg, our planning director, who will lead us off in the presentation. Good evening, Mr. Triesenberg.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Happy New Year to you.
To you as well, sir.
All right. Yes, so this first case before you tonight, it's not typical that an architectural type modification would come back to you, but I would say that in my time here, we've not had a request for kind of a wholesale makeover. And while this project has still been active and moving forward, it has been a while since it was first originally approved. And so the applicant has asked to come back with a new design style for the project. But just to familiarize yourself again with the location, this is tucked in next to the two office buildings that were built here off of Timber Drive behind the Hillendale subdivision. These are the next two parcels which are being recombined, and there were about 4 buildings on there. Just going to skip right to why we're here. What you see on the top was the original design, which was primarily a red brick and taupey colored ephes with windows and doors. We did take a look at it just to see what really was changing. Yes, the window patterns are slightly different. The way the storefronts appear are slightly different. But overall, the percentage of windows to brick face, the percentage of brick to accent materials is all roughly the same. It's just oriented differently, and the color palette is different. The previous ordinance worded some of the differences between a minor modification that staff could approve and a major modification that would have to come back to y'all was a little more open to interpretation, but it did say that if it was conspicuous, and when you read kind of the plain language of how that would be, it would be something that would be obvious to the average person. And certainly I think when you change the whole appearance, it's going to be, if somebody was paying attention at the time that this was approved, this will look conspicuously different. However, you know, like I say, the percentage of materials is still the same. We reviewed it against the East Timber Drive East overlay requirements. We feel as staff that it still meets everything except for the original condition that was put in by the applicants, that it would look similar to the project next door. So we do have this here before you tonight. I am going to leave it mostly to the applicant to explain their reasonings as to why. But as far as it meeting the technical language, what does exist of this in the ordinance, staff does feel that it does meet it. Just the difference of the self-imposed conditions at the time versus what they would like to do now. But if you do have any questions for me, I'll be glad to try to field them or take a quick note and get back to you here shortly after you hear from the applicant.
Okay. Does anybody have a preliminary question for Jeff? He'll be back with us. That the applicant will be the main person providing some explanation and information. Okay, Mr. Triesenberg, if there aren't any questions for you, would you care to introduce the
Yes, Mr.
First
Justin Bannister, I think, is here to speak on behalf of the applicant.
Okay. And since I didn't catch your name, if you'll give us your name and address, please, sir, for the record, will be helpful.
Justin Bannister.
Oh, okay.
And use that address.
Yes, sir.
P.O. Box 769, Garner, North Carolina, 27529.
Thanks, sir. Okay, you may proceed.
So our request is fairly simple. It's just a change in primarily, as Mr. Triesenberg discussed, the color of the material, as well as some change to the structure of the windows, but it's a fairly simple request, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, sir. Counsel, I'll give each of you an opportunity to question Mr. Bannister. I'll start on my left with Mr. Matthews over here.
Yes, sir. So was there a specific reason you guys wanted to do this, or somebody's going to ask you this question, and I'll go ahead and get it out of the way.
No specific reason other than trying to modernize the look and feel of our building. You see a lot of new buildings going up, adopting the wider, lighter colors. So that was kind of the primary driver behind it.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Singleton, sir?
No, sir, not right now.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Behringer, anything for Mr. Bannister? Mr. Dellinger? And Mr. Vance?
No questions at this moment.
Okay. Unless you have something else to offer, was there any, I'm not hearing anything from counsel for this witness, is that right? Okay,
Mr.
excuse me.
Triesenberg, but not for Mr.
I
Bannister.
see, okay, okay. If you want to just wait there for a minute, we'll see, Mr. Triesenberg can answer this question.
Yes, Jeff, on the conditions on G, it talks about a chain link fence in commercial zoning districts having the vinyl covering. And I'm just curious now, since this is being planned and the project just west of it has already been completed for some time, and the chain link fences are still up there in front of that, I'm just curious why the rest of Timber Drive doesn't have the chain link fences. And I realize that I think the town paid for these chain link fences when Timber Drive East was, Timber Drive was extended long before any projects were proposed. So do the chain link fence, are they still required to stay up per the DOT? I see Mr. Johnson nodding his head. I think you just got the answer to the question.
Yeah, we talked about that recently and checked in with them. The ones in front of the property do need to stay. So this is actually what you're seeing is a requirement of the Timber Drive East overlay that kind of establishes that vinyl black chain link as a minimum standard. So many of the projects I think elsewhere on the site are doing something to a higher standard, but in the front, yes.
Okay. And we previously approved this, just on the condition that the 6-foot wooden privacy fence is all along the back property line.
Right. Right.
Okay.
That's to assist
Just
with
wanted to get the
neighbors.
question answered about the chain link fence.
Sure.
Mr. Singleton, if I could just add, when Mr. Johnson researched this recently, he did find that there is an application process with DOT to remove the control access, but we don't know whether that would be something that would be successful, and that is ultimately an approval by the Board of Transportation. So it's not a local decision that we could just petition for.
Okay, all right, thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sinklin. Do you have anything, Mr. Matthews? Okay, all right. For either Mr. Bannister or Mr. Triesenberg, anybody? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I think that's all for now, unless you had anything else? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, at this point, you can have a seat if you want to, and I'll ask if there's anyone else here who came here this evening intending or desiring to speak to this matter. Pro con? None? Okay. All right, council, unless you have other questions, I'm going to close the public hearing and call for a motion. So, thank you all.
Mayor, I find that the application CUP SP 1807-M21-01 continues to meet the town's 8 criteria for special use permits as identified in Article 3.9.2.d. Therefore, I move that the town council approve CUP SP 1807-M21-01 Timber Drive Professional Park with the original 5 conditions to be listed on the amended permit that will be prepared by the staff.
Second.
Okay, thank you so much, Councilmember Singleton. And motion was seconded by either Ms. Behringer or Mr. Matthews, I believe. So it's properly made and seconded. Any other comment or question from council? Okay, hearing none. Call for the question. So if you favor the motion as presented and explained by Mr. Singleton, would you vote aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And if there's any opposition, vote no, and I don't believe I heard any. So the motion carries, and Mr. Bannister, I'm not sure if your grandfather is Mr. Raleigh Bannister, a gentleman I know fairly well, but you can report to him, I guess, on the outcome and give him my good wishes as he continues on. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Number 2 is also a public hearing, special use permit with site plan SUP SP 2104 Greenfield 27. Ms. Jones, let me see, would I need to go through the same explanation for the quasi-judicial hearing, or that information still applies?
Only with respect to whether any of the council members need to make a disclosure.
Okay. All right.
And then you will need to swear in witnesses for this one.
Exactly. Okay, thank you very much. So, council, you're aware of the need to disclose any ex parte communication or the other issues that were mentioned there. Does anybody have anything you need to disclose at this time? Okay, seeing and hearing none, very good. So, for those of you who are prepared to give testimony in this hearing, if you again would go back to the area of our town clerk and be sworn at this time.
And Ms. Jones, who's on the Teams meeting, she'll need to be sworn in as well.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jones, can you hear our town clerk? She is asking, I think, to have you sworn at this time.
I did not hear the town clerk. No, I didn't.
Okay, let's see if we can do. Can you hear her at all at this time?
I heard a little bit, but I don't think it was. I know So's voice, so I knew that was her making a sound, but I couldn't make out what she was saying.
She's coming a little closer to the mic and maybe. Can you hear her at this time, Ms. Jones?
No, but I swear that the information I'm saying is to the best of my knowledge.
Okay,
I do.
good enough. Okay.
Okay.
I think that'll
Do you
work.
solemnly, sincerely, truly give
I've heard a
testimony
few times. I think I
that
know
the
a little
evidence
bit
you
of it.
provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, thank you so much, all of you, for your patience. And so I'm going to open the public hearing formally, and I believe Mr. Triesenberg is Ms. Jones, the initial presenter on this matter. Okay. So, Ms. Jones, the floor is yours at this time for your presentation.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year to everyone as well.
Thank you.
I will be presenting Greenfield 27. As soon as is it up? It's loading. Sorry about the. All right. As I mentioned, I am presenting Greenfield 27 SUP SP 2104. The locating, the applicant is Whit Brown. The owner is Greenfield 40 Associates. Is located at 600 South Greenfield Parkway, and the tract size is about 27 acres. The proposed use is a warehouse and flex space. It's currently zoned as MXD1, Mixed Use District 1. The setbacks are 30-foot setback for the front, 0 for the rear and side, and 30 for the corner. I just want to mention there was a typo in the staff report in the neighborhood meeting section where it said a virtual meeting was held. That was incorrect. A neighborhood meeting was held at Garner Senior Center at 5:30 p.m. on October 25th, 2021, and there were no meeting attendees. And here is a view of the site.
Allison, just a moment. We're not getting your slides advanced. We're going to see if there's something on our end we need to help with there.
Okay, I'm sorry. Uh-oh.
Allison, if you would please stop sharing your screen. We're going to advance the slides here for you locally.
All right, let me pull this back up. Stop presenting. Okay, I stopped sharing my screen now.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, I can see is the site plan information where the setbacks and the information is.
Correct.
Okay, I can see it, but I really can't read it. But I'll pull up on my end so I can read the information. Uh-oh. Okay, so is it everything okay on your end now?
Yes.
Okay, can you go to the next slide, please? The next slide, please. All right, so, okay. Sorry about that, guys. I'm telling you guys, sorry about everyone. This is a overall view of the site showing the 3 proposed buildings. Next slide, please. And here is the elevation of those proposed buildings. And that is the front and back. Next slide, please. The open space. Parkland open space are not required for this project, as is a non-residential development. Next slide, please. The landscape and buffer requirements. The tree coverage requirement is 10% for this project and is preserving 10% of the existing vegetation. The perimeter buffers, all the perimeter buffers are 15 feet in width. Next slide, please. The landscaping buffers requirements continued. There are street buffers along, Greenfield Parkway and Waterfield Drive will both be 15 feet in width. And the street trees are being provided along both frontages every 40 feet as required. The next slide, please. Lighting. Street lighting has been shown in conformance with the UDO, as well as the staff recommendations for LED fixtures. All fixtures have zero uplight, low glare, and warm light, exhibiting color temperature of no more than 4,000 Kelvin. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. Parking. Parking for flex space is 1 space per 500 square feet of floor area, while parking for warehouse is 1 space for every 2 employees on a maximum shift, but not less than 5,000 feet of area devoted to the use. They're required to have 382 parking spaces, and they're providing 382 parking spaces. Fire protection. The inspections department, together with the fire department, has reviewed and preliminary approved this plan. Environment and floodplain. This site does contain FEMA designated floodplain and a Neuse River buffer. No development is being proposed within these areas. If impacted, permits from appropriate state and federal agencies will be required. Stormwater management. Greenfield 27 is a commercial development that is not located within the watershed protection area. This site is subject to water quality requirements for nitrogen and water quantity requirements for the 1, 10, and 25-year storm events. This plan proposes two wet retention ponds and a sand filter to satisfy all the water quality and quantity requirements for the stormwater. A nitrogen offset payment is not required for this project, since one was paid for this development back in 2007. Water and sewer. The parcels will be connected to the City of Raleigh's public water and sewer system. Infrastructure, roads and sidewalks. There will be 2 driveways on Waterfield Drive and there'll be 2 driveways on Waterfield Drive and 1 driveway off of South Greenfield Parkway. The curb and gutter are already existing on both these roads, and sidewalks will be installed along South Greenfield Parkway and Waterfield Drive. After sufficient plan review and revisions, staff finds as this project now proposed may be considered consistent with the regulations of the UDO, so long as the following project-specific conditions are being met. Prior to the issuance of building permit, an annexation petition must be submitted to the planning department. The lots must be lot of record. Payment of engineering inspection fees shall be paid to Town of Garner, and the payment to public utility fees shall be paid to the City of Raleigh. And prior to the certificate of occupancy, the stormwater control measure maintenance plan and associated memorandum of agreement shall be approved and recorded with the Wake County Register of Deeds. A cross-access agreement for lots must be recorded with the Wake County Register of Deeds office, and an acceptance punch list for South Greenfield Parkway to be completed and confirmation of completion from the NCODOT district office delivered to the Town of Garner Plan Department. Are there any questions for staff?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jones. Anything you need to add, Mr.?
No, sir.
Yeah. Okay, I'll start well on my right with Mr. Vance. If he has any questions for Ms. Jones?
I have no questions for Ms. Jones.
Okay, thanks, sir. Mr. Dellinger?
No questions.
Ms. Behringer, anything? Mr. Singleton?
No, sir.
Mr. Matthews? Okay, Ms. Jones, no questions here, I don't believe. Okay. Is anyone else from the town presenting? Was that?
Yes, sir. I believe the applicant has a presentation.
Okay. Very good. We'll hear from that person at this time. Or just introduce yourself with your name and address.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Chad Essick. I'm a zoning and land use attorney with the law firm of Pointer Spruill in Raleigh. I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant, Widgeon Capital LLC, requesting approval of this special use permit for a proposed industrial flex facility on just over 27 acres located on South Greenfield Parkway within the existing Greenfield South industrial area. Joining me here this evening are the applicant's representatives, Al Goodrich and Whit Brown, as well as the applicant's consultant who prepared the plans, Sharon Scroggins with Hager Smith Design, and Jonathan Allen with NV5 Engineers and Consultants. We also have here tonight Jimmy Barnes, who's a broker with NAI Tri Properties. Saw all those folks get sworn in. I don't intend to call all of them to present testimony. What I thought I might do is just summarize a lot of what's already in the materials, the site plan, and what staff's already presented. And then to the extent there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer those. I want to be cognizant of the council's time tonight. Thank you. Ms. Jones did a nice job summarizing, and as staff discussed, the next slide, please. This site consists currently of 5 parcels within the Greenfield South industrial area. Our proposal would be to recombine these parcels into 2 parcels with one building, the largest building being located on one parcel, and then 2 other buildings being located on the other parcel. As council is aware, the Greenfield South industrial area is an area south of Business 70 and east of I-40, and it's zoned and planned for a variety of industrial uses. It's designated light industrial on the future land use map. The area began to be developed for industrial uses in the early 2000s and has seen additional growth in recent years with new development. And Widgeon Capital is looking to increase its investment in this area by proposing this project. Next slide, please. These parcels, like all of Greenfield South area, are zoned MXD1 with the I-40 overlay, which allows a variety of light industrial and commercial uses as a matter of right. The reason we're before council tonight is because we're proposing a project that's over 100,000 square feet of non-residential area, which requires the special use permit review. The uses that we are proposing are consistent with the existing zoning, with the future land use map, and when consistent with Garner's forward comprehensive plan. Next slide, please. Consistent with the zoning and the designations in the comprehensive plan documents, the area has been developed for light industrial and warehousing uses similar to what's being proposed this evening. These include to the south and to the west of the properties warehouse and distribution facilities for Papa John's and Domino's. Industrial uses to the south and west with Advanced Concrete and the Penske Truck Rental, and Pergo, a flooring manufacturer. And then you have the Capital Chrysler Jeep Dodge located at the edge of the industrial area along Business 70 north of the subject properties. And then to the east of the site, directly across South Greenfield Parkway, is a very large vacant tract of land. That tract has been advertised and promoted for additional industrial development by both Wake County Economic Development and the town of Garner. Next slide, please. So again, the proposed warehouse flex development will be operated in a manner consistent with these surrounding industrial uses. The scale of the proposed use is likewise comparable to the surrounding uses. For this site, we have one building, the 600 building that's shown there will be just over 160,000 square feet. The 4101 building, the smallest building, will be almost 45,000 square feet, and then the 4501 building just over 57,000 square feet. And that's consistent with those other industrial uses that I just reviewed in the area from a size and scale with I think the Pergo, one of their buildings, 180,000 square feet. They have another one that's almost 200,000 square feet, and then the Papa John's facility is just over 60,000 square feet. Next slide. So this staff alluded to or showed this in their presentation with the elevations of the front and the back. We'll have tilt-up concrete painted panels with glass storefront on them. So that is also consistent with the other projects in the area. In addition, next slide, please. There's been commitments to preserve natural area, almost 3 acres of the site, about 10%. That is within the FEMA floodplain, and the Neuse River buffer area will not be disturbed. That's on the eastern portion of the site. As noted by staff, sidewalks will be provided along the full frontage of both Waterfield Drive and South Greenfield Parkway. We will have cross-access provided between both tracks to ensure adequate traffic flow between the entire site. As was noted in the staff report, no traffic impact analysis was required for this project since the trip generation levels were below which would require a TIA to be done. Additionally, as noted, the build out of the streets and other transportation infrastructure in the Greenfield South industrial area has been approved and is adequate to serve this development. Specifically, DOT, one of the conditions that was identified was DOT's acceptance of South Greenfield Parkway as a condition to obtaining the certificate of occupancy. There are a few punch list items that need to be done, mostly related to patching and some guardrails. So that is a condition of that will satisfy prior to any certificate of occupancy being issued. Again, as staff noted, the plan meets all requirements under the UDO for parking, lighting, fire protection, water, sewer availability, frontage improvements, setbacks, landscape, and buffer requirements. One of the standards under the special use permit review is impacts on that will not have a negative impact on adjoining or abutting properties. As I mentioned, Jimmy Barnes is here with NAI Tri-Properties. Happy to have him come testify and provide more data on these points if there's any questions that you have. But what we've seen in this area is it's being marketed exclusively for industrial uses because the area is zoned for it and has the infrastructure necessary for the industrial use. I will note that at the neighborhood meeting, I think there was one property owner directly across Southwood Green Parkway that believed this project would substantially increase their property value. And so we've not, other than that, we've not heard any negative comments from any neighbors or any other persons from the general public. So just to summarize and touch briefly on each of the special use permit standards. The first one, the proposed use will not endanger public health or safety. Again, flex warehouse space. This is not anything that we're going to endanger public health or safety. From a use standpoint, as I noted, the property will not materially or substantially injure the value of adjoining or abutting properties. If there is additional information requested on that, again, Mr. Barnes is here and can provide some data points in this area on what property values have and continue to do. As staff noted, The proposed use is consistent with adopted plans and policies, including the transportation plan, as well as comprehensive plan documents. As I reviewed, the proposed use is compatible with the adjacent uses in the area, given the industrial nature of the area and the proposed flex and warehouse space. The design, scale, and layout are similar to those adjacent uses. Special use permit standard number 6, any significant adverse impacts resulting from the use will be mitigated or offset, including the impacts on the natural environment. Again, as noted, almost 3 acres of this site is being conserved and not disturbed. That's within the riparian buffer and the floodplain. And then special use standard 7, the public safety, transportation, and utilities will be available to serve the subject property while maintaining sufficient levels of surface. As staff noted, and as I've alluded to, the infrastructure in this area is in place. The water and sewer is there. The traffic street network is there. And so we think we've presented evidence to satisfy standard 7. And then finally, standard 8, adequate assurances, continuing maintenance have been provided. There will be stormwater easements in place to help for purposes of maintaining any stormwater devices. There will also be some condominium declarations that require maintaining open space, as well as in the cross-access agreements, maintaining those cross-access easements or drives for purposes of making sure those are adequately maintained. So with that, Mayor, Member City Council, I ask that all of our materials that have been submitted be included as a part of the record tonight. And again, happy to have anyone come up and provide additional testimony or answer questions that you may have. But with that, we respectfully ask that you approve the case tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, and we certainly will receive the materials you've indicated. So at this point, I'll have council ask any questions that are on their mind, and I'll start with Ms. Behringer. Okay, Mr. Dellinger. Okay, Mr. Vance, anything?
Questions?
Okay, Mr. Singleton
No, sir.
and Mr. Matthews.
No, sir.
Okay, you get off easy, I guess. Does the council desire to hear from any of the other persons who are here with the applicant representing their interest?
I don't, Mr. Mayor. I think it was well presented.
Okay, anybody? Okay, hearing none. I'm supposing there's not any other person or any other presentation to be made at this time. Is that right? Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. Is there any other person who is here, not necessarily with the applicant, who desires to give testimony in this case, pro or con? Seeing and hearing none, then council, if you feel like you have vetted this matter sufficiently, then I'm going to close the hearing and call for a motion.
I find the application SUP SP 2104 meets the town's 8 criteria for special use permits as identified in Article 3.9.2.d. Therefore, I move that the town council approve SUP SP 2104 Greenfield 27 with the 7 site-specific conditions to be listed on the permit that will be prepared by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Is there a second? Second. Okay, motion made, probably seconded by Ms. Behringer. Okay. Council, if you're ready, I'll call for a vote on the motion. If you favor the motion that is before you, would you please vote aye?
Aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposition, vote no. And there is none. So the special permit is approved. Thank you, all of you who were here for this matter this evening. We appreciate it, and look forward to seeing this facility out there in the not too distant future, I guess. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. We'll go then to the next item of business, which is under new and old business. We have 3 items there. And Mr. Bamford, I believe I'm going to recognize you for a conditional zoning map amendment with Plan CZ SP 2101. And I will recognize you at this time, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Happy New Year. This
Thank
is a
you.
conditional zoning request. It does have a site plan attached as a condition. This has been to public hearing, and it also has been to Planning Commission, and we'll get into the summary of those meetings in just a minute. This is case number CZSP 21-01, and the request is to rezone 27.41 acres from community retail general use zoning to multifamily 2 conditional zoning district 252 for the development of a multifamily residential community. This site will accommodate over 100 multifamily units and would therefore be required to come back for a special use permit hearing before the council at a later date to be determined. As part of this request, there are zoning conditions that are proposed that limit the range of uses in the MF2 district, and there are also some architectural conditions proposed as well. So this is a vicinity map of the project rezoning area outlined here. This is currently not inside the town limits, but it is inside our zoning jurisdiction. The area on the map that's shaded in light blue or gray are areas that are currently annexed inside the town limits. The city of Raleigh's jurisdiction is directly to the north and also directly to the east. So all of these areas here are city of Raleigh zoning and land use. Land use directly to the east is heavy commercial with outdoor storage. Uses to the north would be commercial to, I guess, northeast. To the northwest, you have Renaissance Park, which is a residential development on the Raleigh side of Tryon Road. Directly to the west, we have Junction Boulevard, where we have light industrial uses. There's some office, warehouse, flex space. There's some auto repair uses. There's a restaurant, retail stores. So it's a mix of commercial uses along Junction Boulevard. Directly to the south along Garner Station Boulevard, we have a commercial development approved years ago called North-South Station. North of Garner Station Boulevard, we have a retail shopping center, and also directly south of Garner Station Boulevard, we have retail shopping. This is a street view looking east. Tryon Road is located over here to the left. Tryon Road was realigned years ago. This site originally had direct frontage on Tryon Road. When it was realigned, DOT put in a service road here, which would give access to this property and also the property on the Raleigh side, east of the site. So the current access into the property is off of this service road, which has been renamed Broomfield Hunter Lane. This map shows the current zoning. It's zoned community retail, which is a commercial zoning district that allows around 50 different uses. All uses have to be inside of an enclosed building, so no outdoor storage and no outdoor operations are permissible in the current zoning. The zoning directly to the west and south in the darker red is heavy commercial service business. That is conditional zoning, which was done in 1988, and there are zoning use restrictions on most of the properties that are shown in the dark red. This is a list of rezoning cases in this part of Garner. Again, the area along Junction Boulevard and also North-South Station, that was rezoned in 1988. The rezoning site was rezoned in 2017. It was originally zoned Industrial 1, which was light industrial, and they rezoned it to community retail in 2017. Again, the existing zoning allows retail, office, restaurants, service uses. Again, must be inside an enclosed building. The applicant has proposed conditions as part of this request. Number one, there are use restrictions. The MF2 zoning district allows around 20 different uses. The applicant is proposing to restrict that list down to only 2: condominiums and multifamily, including apartments. Condition number 2 is standard language that we insert for any type of residential zoning. The third condition, vinyl siding will not be used as the primary exterior building material. Number 4, a clubhouse will be provided with a minimum square footage of 5,000 square feet. A pool deck will be provided with a minimum square footage of 8,000 square feet. A dog park will be provided with a minimum square footage of 1,500 square feet. A playground will be provided with a minimum square footage of 1,500 square feet. A pool cabana will be provided with a minimum square footage of 1,000 square feet. And lastly, development of this site shall be completed in conformance with the approved site plan. There was a neighborhood meeting which was held on October the 14th. More information is in your staff report. The map shows the 300-foot notification buffer in red, and the properties that touch or are within that buffer are shown in dark blue. So all the property owners in the dark blue were notified of the neighborhood meeting and also the public hearing. I will note that there was no one from the public that attended the neighborhood meeting. Next, we will move on to the details of the master plan.
Evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this part of it since you've seen it once before. But you do see again the pertinent information here regarding the number of units in the master plan, the acreage and setbacks. Again, just refresh your memory here with the site plan. This project would be building 2 lanes or half of that Grinnell Street extension along their frontage. The other half would come in under the City of Raleigh or with the BRT project. We don't know this exact alignment yet, but they have done some preliminary work to set aside this area. So they would be paying a fee in lieu for their portion down here. And then again, there will be a need for realignment at Tryon Road to get it directly across from the existing Grinnell Street. So there will be temporary access out here to Broomfield Hunter that they will use, but we will not be asking them to put in curb, gutter, and sidewalk in this area because that curb, gutter, sidewalk edge will shift once the BRT or this property over here in Raleigh redevelops. One thing that we did discuss with them since you last saw this was the median division here of Broomfield Hunter Lane, so that there were 2 different travel ways for emergency access into the site. That was their preferred option versus trying to work something out with the neighboring property owner. But for practical purposes, that will be open during the day. And again, first responders may come from Raleigh or Garner, depending on where the vehicles are at the time of any given call. And to do the traffic impact analysis, and we did, again, that brought up the two separate points of access. Given that Tryon Road, though, was just recently improved by the City of Raleigh, there were no intersection improvements requested by NCDOT. And as a reminder, the bus rapid transit corridors G and H, the yellow lines, are what were endorsed by both councils. And that's just a status update on the project. That has not changed since you last saw this. Again, we've looked at the landscaping and buffer requirements, parks and open space, any environment and floodplain issues, have checked all of that again. Water and sewer, again, was checked. Everything is good there, including a fee in lieu for the portions of Grinnell Street that will not be built at this time. Parking, we still do have, the applicant will be coming back to you more than likely at the special use permit to discuss more about the parking situation and any requests for reductions there. And so the infrastructure will be checked one more time at the preliminary plat review when this comes back for a special use permit hearing if the zoning is approved. Had a public hearing summary in the council of the council meeting in your report. Added a planning commission summary to your report. It was voted 7-0, again with a condition that that access resolution be documented. That has happened now between planning commission and coming back to you tonight. As far as consistency of the request, we have looked at it as designated as a mixed activity center, which does recognize two different levels of transit service. If and when, as you know, project moves along, premium transit would be provided in the near future. At that time, we could support something more dense in terms of 4 to 6 stories in height. We're kind of in that in-between time right now that we talked about last time. With just regular access and bus service, generally then we set the height expectations at 1 to 3. That mixed activity center designation, which carries down into the north-south station area. Transportation plan calls for that 4-lane divided facility to accommodate the future bus rapid transit. That is being accommodated as much as it possibly can at this time. And the site was not designated as a parkland search area, nor are there recommended greenway paths in this vicinity, so therefore it can be considered consistent with Parks and Rec Greenways Cultural Resources Master Plan. Planning Commission's consistency statement was that this request to rezone from community retail to multifamily residential conditional was consistent with adopted land use plans as it incorporates the extension of Grinnell Street in anticipation of a future bus rapid transit route, as well as further diversifying the zoning mix within the mixed activity center future land use area designation. Incumbent upon you as the council tonight as a decision maker to decide on the reasonableness of the request. Staff has given their support to this application. Sorry, that says Auburn Station, but recommends that the town council approval of the planning commission statement and further recommends approval of the zoning amendment as reasonable. Have your motion worksheet available, and we are here to answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Thank you. Thank you both for your very good presentation. Council, your opportunity to ask questions, make comments. Start with Mr. Vance.
Question in reference to the bus rapid transit schedule. Can you pull that back up again? Just want to see. construction 2025. That's when it's scheduled by this current schedule to begin construction. And there was another statement in reference to redevelopment of the property that's on the Raleigh side. When it came to doing the proposed road improvements, there would not be any curb and gut until both of those are in place or happen, or?
So whichever happens first. If any of the properties on the Raleigh side of the line were to redevelop, they would be responsible for building their half of the Grinnell Street piece. If it doesn't happen before the BRT gets approved and goes under construction drawings and development, then the BRT project will build it.
One more question. What if BRT doesn't come?
If BRT doesn't come, then again, it will be dependent upon redevelopment of the properties on the Raleigh side to finish it. But for now, it'll be a two-way functioning local street.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. Anything, Mr. Dellinger?
Questions for the applicant, if anyone else has questions for
Okay.
staff.
Ms. Behringer, anything? Mr. Singleton?
Okay, go back to that schedule again, please, if you don't mind, Jeff. Now, the first project they're doing is on Capitol Boulevard, which they hadn't started yet at all, and that's going to happen first. So this is like a very aggressive schedule, plus the funding for this hadn't been approved, as it has for Capitol Boulevard. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Thank you, New Bern Avenue. I apologize. Thank you. So that's a big concern is we're, again, someone else controls all this and we don't control it, which is I have a big issue with. Now, a little bit further down, you talked about height restrictions. Could you go to that screen, that slide also, please? Okay, so if we knew, or if that was already built, or bus rapid, this has already been approved, it's designed, they're starting construction on it, then it could be in more intense use, and the height could be 4 to 6 stories.
We could support that, yeah.
But since we don't know if it's coming, we're setting it at 1 to 3 stories. But it's supposed to be coming. Right. So we're like when we were chasing our tail here because we say it's coming and it's going to happen because Raleigh's got it the plans. But we're going to limit the height. But we could have more height and more density combined in there if we knew it was coming. So why don't we wait till we know if it's coming? I mean, I have a lot of concerns about this whole project.
Admittedly, it is a little bit of the chicken and the egg. You know, we've been talking with the property owner for several years now. They're very motivated as they're getting up in age, and it's owned by a few family members. So they're looking for resolution and to do something with the property. And but they're aware of the project, but they're just not in a position where they feel comfortable waiting. Is my
I understand that
situation.
But some of this hinges on a project that the city of Raleigh has to pull the string on here. And so their city council has endorsed it now. They can have an election this year sometime. Makeup may change, and they may say, well, after New Bern Avenue, we're going to do another one. We're not going to do that one. So there's nothing etched in stone as far as I know that they could possibly change
Right.
where their focus is.
Right. It is not nailed down for sure at this point, but what we can tell you is that originally they were looking at the Cary, the western extension, to come first, but there are so many issues that they found that they have to address with that one in terms of land acquisition agreements that they have now. They were moving them both together, but with the expectation that the Cary would go first. That has now been switched, and so now they're focused. And Mr. Patel is still our coordinator at Raleigh, and so he's front and center now as the potential number 2.
Because I mean, when you look at the site, it's interesting because there's no access to 401, there's no access to Garner Station Boulevard, there's no access to Junction Boulevard, so it's not landlocked, but it's almost landlocked. And we're going to put Grinnell Street in, which goes nowhere right now. And there's of course no agreement with the Garner Station Boulevard property there, the north-south station, for development to proceed. I know they've been conversations with those property owners also. So, I mean, we're going out on a whim and a whistle here and thinking, well, this all could happen, but what if that BRT isn't built for 10 years? I just have a lot of concerns about the whole project. I'll stop there.
Okay. Mr. Matthew?
Yes, sir, Mr. Certainly understand my colleagues' concerns over there, but with the climate being what it is, and who knows about the BRT, because, again, we're dealing with Raleigh, and our timeline is one thing and theirs is another. However, as Gray mentioned, it is somewhat landlocked, so multifamily housing, probably about the only thing it could go in that piece of property because there's no retail frontage. It's already been taken. And, you know, there's a lot of what ifs, but if one thing we do need is housing in our area with the growth we've got going on. And even with some of the concerns, again, with BRT, again, who knows when that's going to happen. It could be quicker or later. As Greg mentioned, it could just go somewhere else. So, I still support the project just for the fact of what it is. It is landlocked in. There's not nothing else much that's going to go in there. And if anything, if BRT does come through, the density there will help the BRT and put folks on opportunity to take the bus service, which is a plus. And who knows where to go. So I don't necessarily say my concerns. It's just more of a comment.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Berringer, do you have a chance to weigh in? I don't think so. Okay. Mr. Dellinger?
A question for the developer, if they will entertain a question.
Oh, okay. Good evening,
Introducing
sir.
myself again, Tom Johnson with the law firm of Williams Mullen, here on behalf of the applicant. And I'll be glad to start with your questions, and I can address some of the other questions that have come up.
My question is sort of in line with what Mr. Singleton is saying, and sort of in line with what Mr. Matthews is saying with the density issue, but we need to be denser. But my question is, if the BRT were already there, aligned directly against this property, is this the project that would be brought to this council?
Well, let me let the developer, as the applicant, to speak to that.
Hi, thanks again for seeing us. Adam Tucker of 111 Princess Street, Wilmington, North Carolina. The answer is yes. This site is very challenging. I heard the talk about the density. Could we have more density if the BRT was there? Could we go 4 to 6 stories? Well, technically, yes, you could, but if you look at the site plan we have now with the town's ordinances for parking, for the spacing between the buildings, it would be very difficult to get any more density than we have on that site as it is. If you look at it, we've used every inch of that site right now. So even if you put another story on all these buildings, we couldn't come anywhere close to meeting the parking code for Garner. So while in theory, yes, it does sound good to have more density, it won't support, this site in particular will not support that additional density due to the constraints on it between the wetlands and the setbacks and the building separation. So the answer is yes, we would do the same project just based on, the retail's not going to survive without the main frontage. Even though Grinnell will be coming through and the BRT route will be coming through, there still won't be enough retail, there still won't be enough traffic on Grinnell for a retailer to get excited about having their only storefront, kind of on a secondary thoroughfare.
I'm actually shocked because if there were existing BRT, mass transit, high volume, multimodal access to this site, and the only thing that you'd be able to bring there is 3-story apartment buildings, that is not the type of growth we need here in Garner.
But
it's not. Like you travel anywhere in the country, you have high volume mass transit. You have higher density in vertical construction. You drive around Wake County, you see it everywhere. And to say you couldn't fit it on this site, they can put 20-story buildings on half city block in downtown.
But we don't have the ability to do that here.
Well, maybe somebody else does. And this is if this is what you would build in this high volume traffic area, then we need other developers to come in and develop that site. Because in 10 years, somebody's going to look and say, oh, this bus rapid transit is amazing. Oh, they put 3-story apartment buildings next to it? What a missed opportunity for the town of Garner. And Mr. Matthews is right. We need more housing. We need more and more and more. We need density. These types of transit opportunities don't come along very often. And to expect us to miss the opportunity to do higher density isn't fair. We have commuter rail coming. Are we going to sit and approve 3-story apartment buildings next to commuter rail? I don't think we should. I'm on the UDO rewrite committee. There's zoning opportunities coming up for activity center. There are other opportunities to develop this site that are better aligned with the infrastructure improvements that are coming. And it just is, it's not a great project. It's not a great project. It's not going to look like a great project in 10 years. It won't.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger. Mr. Vance? Okay. See, I believe I covered everybody this way. Anything else down here?
Mr. Dellinger said we need more density. We need more density in the appropriate locations, not everywhere. Not every, and this is an infill project. Not every infill project needs density. It is a tough site because of the wetlands. I understand that, but take up 2 footprints and add parking, and then put 4 to 6 story apartments in some of the other units anyway. I just don't think this is the right fit. And again, we're being asked to do something on a street, on a bus rapid transit system that may be here in 3 years and maybe here in 33 years. It may never happen. We don't know. I just think this chicken and egg this is not the right time to do a chicken and egg project. Because if you wanted to max the project out, I do believe there could be more density. I know it can be designed differently. Again, take 2 or 3 footprints away and raise the other buildings higher. There has to be ways to make it work. Anyway, if everything's being pinned on bus rapid transit, then Mr. Dillon is correct. This is not the best project for this piece of property.
Okay. By the way, I hear your skepticism about bus rapid transit when it's coming, Mr. Singleton.
It's out of our control.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's out of our control. Look at this. Here's an example about taking a loan. This is the second Christmas that Amazon's been on Jones Sausage Road. It's been open 2.5 years. We've been working on the design. We hired the firm, a year and a half ago, the design it. We got the bond approval in November. It won't be completed. We got to do right away and design and build it for 2.5 to 3 more years. So that's 5.5 to 6 years when they opened that we finished Jones Sausage Road, and we control that. Just think of that, how long that is. And we control that, working with DOT.
I'm hearing everybody, and as mentioned, this is a very unusual piece of property here. And again, there's a lot of things we don't have control of. And speaking for me, I know with density and parking regulations, there's some things your hands are tied on. It's a very unusual situation. But again, we can't hold up our growth and things we want to do and just waiting on BRT, because like Ray said, we never know when it's going to happen. And these people would like to develop this, and it's a very unusual piece of property, and there'll be other opportunities. So I personally can't see holding back on this, on a lot of what we don't know, and we can go ahead and make this developed, this property, and put housing in there for these folks. That's just my thought. And I respect my colleagues, what they've got to say too. But if you can't build it on account of you're limited on parking, whatever the case may be, we could beat this into death. But with BRT, if we wait on BRT, that whole corridor could be held back who knows how long on other projects. So again, that's just an opinion. Like all of us, we got them up here, and I respect my colleagues, what they got to say too. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor, for the applicant. Is BRT a key or critical point for the project? Can you hear me okay?
I'd love to have BRT.
Is it critical to this project?
No, it's not. Would it be helpful? Would I love to have it? Absolutely, I would. But again, we've done another project in Garner in the Timber Drive area, very similar, very same rents. This one is a little bit closer to Raleigh. You know, we anticipate the demand here to be even greater than what we had out at Timber Creek. So I fully believe this project can be successful without BRT, and we would be here tonight even if BRT wasn't in the picture. But, you know, we can't control that, and as you said, BRT may never come. So, you know, we're making an investment in Garner. We're not making an investment in BRT. You know, we're here for the growth and the citizens, not for the bus stop.
Mayor, and we have a responsibility to maximize the opportunities in Garner for our tax base and our citizens and our denser development. We can't continue to just do 3-story apartment buildings all over Garner. We've had so many come up in the past 2 years, it's driving me actually crazy when I look around the rest of the triangle and they're going 4 or 5 stories tall. And they look at Garner and think they can sneak this in on us. It is not the right project for this site. And it is intimated that there's urgency on the part of the landowner. That cannot be imposed on the rest of the town. That's not our responsibility. We're looking out for the bigger picture of Garner to bend to what the needs of a specific property owner and their urgency. Because over time, it's a missed opportunity for our tax revenue to have higher density here in multiples. And that's what we have to take into consideration when we look at the rezoning. It's a great piece of property. There's a great opportunity there. But it has to be a great opportunity and a return on investment that this town's making as well, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So I'm with Mr. Singleton. I hear Mr. Matthews' concerns, but these opportunities don't come around very often. If we have to go with the assumption that the BRT is coming. We assume 540 is coming. We assume all these other transportation projects are coming. If we're going to assume that it's coming, then we need to approve what is a right fit for not something that comes along very often, which is property right next to mass transit. So, I just don't think it's a good fit.
Can I just say one thing? I mean, one thing to note is this property is not in the town tax roll right now. So if you wait 5 or 6 years for BRT to come, maybe not, that's, you know, that many years of tax revenue that you're missing out. And a number of units isn't going to make that much. Over time it will, but in the short run, or between now and then, there'll be, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars that are missed out from Garner.
But if we waited those 3 years and got higher density, we'd make up that lost revenue in the span of a few years because of the higher density. So we're not actually in the long term going to be missing out on anything. So I don't accept that argument.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question to staff? Just a curiosity question. I think I know the answer, but I'm just going to ask it. If we never heard of BRT, never coming, nothing at all, with this project, they would still build a 2-lane road back and forth for access issues to get out to Broomfield Hunter Lane. Would it still be built in a similar fashion as far as access?
Yes, it's still, whether BRT comes or not, this has been identified as a major thoroughfare on the transportation plan since way back. So that connection's always has been on there for decades. It just so happens that because of how it was designated, it was therefore an easy one to throw in as an option for BRT because it was planned to be a 4-lane divided facility.
Okay, so that road has been projected to be there for Garner development or Raleigh development for years. Okay, just wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Jones.
And I have a question for staff as well, and it's the same question. If BRT were there, operating, functional, would you be recommending to this council that this is the highest and best use of this property?
So if it were there, I think our reading of the current adopted plan would be is that it would be encouraging then for sure the 4 to 6 stories. So
right.
I don't think that we probably would.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, did you have anything?
Mr. Mayor?
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Treesberg was so soft-spoken, I didn't
Oh, okay.
Sure what he said
Thank you.
either.
Yeah.
Let me aim this a little higher.
There you go.
No, the way the long-range plan is worded today, if the BRT were operational, then for sure we would be looking at the second half of that recommendation where it says 4 to 6 stories next to premium transit, because it defines the premium transit as either BRT or commuter rail. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that too. Okay. Anything else? I mean, a lively conversation and obviously some concerns about the project. Not going to try to foretell a vote, but we're getting close to that point, I believe. Does anybody else want to be heard from here on the council for comments?
I just, again, the concerns are of such, as an old saying, that when in doubt, do without. So that's what I'm going to go by. When in doubt, do without. And I have doubts about maximizing the use of this property and the future of Grinnell Street in regards to BRT.
Okay, does the applicant have any other response or any ideas that might, I'll use the term salvage the project?
I would just submit that, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And we're tasked today with looking at what we do know. And we do know that Garner is growing. And we do know that there's demand for housing. And we do know that this site is not really viable for retail. And at this time, with the information we have, this is the highest and best use for this site. I think if you look at the occupancy rates throughout Garner, they're screaming for more housing, and we're here to provide it if given the opportunity.
Thank you.
We have one question of the applicant. Is there a possibility when the bus rapid transit comes in, if we grant this permit, that you could add more stories to that building, more floors?
There's always the possibility of redevelopment. I mean, the market will dictate what the highest and best use is. So, 15 years from now, this is going to be an entirely different area. 30 years from now, it's going to be an entirely different area. You see redevelopment of old apartment complexes or retail centers all the time. And, it's just when the demand comes and the market dictates, things will change. So yes, there is a possibility to alter the plans later on if the market dictates it.
Okay, I get you. Well, I think we're at the point of deciding yay or nay. There's an ordinance to approve if we're gonna favor this item, even though I'm sensing a lot of reluctance. I'll give you, I guess, any further opportunity you want, then we'll try to wrap this up for any other response or comments that you care to make.
Yeah, I know that there was some comments earlier on the meeting, and the earlier meeting about the affordability of houses or the housing, and we did take a look at the rent rolls from our previous project, and we had numerous Wake County teachers, we had correctional officers, we had custodial, we had all kinds of workforce population in our community. So we would expect to have that same demographic here. I know there was a concern about the access. We've worked through that with staff to be able to provide a safe fire lane access. There was a concern about the fire station, the availability of fire staff. We have confirmed that both Raleigh and Garner will respond to calls here, so it's not just an either-or situation. We've done everything that staff has asked of us. We've done everything. We've answered the questions that you guys had from the previous meeting that we had. We're here, we're willing, we're ready to move forward if given the opportunity.
Okay. Mr. Attorney, is there anything I'm missing before I call for a vote? Okay. Anything else here? Okay, council, I think we've heard this, aired this fairly well. I certainly think there are things about the project that are worthwhile. Be ideal to salvage them. I'm not voting on the matter. So, the item before you is to approve ordinance 2021-5090. And so at this point, I will ask council if there is a motion to that effect.
Mr. Mayor, I'll offer up one. We'll see where it goes. And before I do move, I'd like to make mention that the applicant has met the standards and went along with the request that we have made, which was just mentioned. The planning board unanimously supported. There's concerns that those things we don't have control of, and that's, you kind of hate that, but, life does continue. With that in mind, I move that the town council accept the planning commission's written statement regarding consistency of the zoning amendment requests with adopted land use plans detailed in section 6 of staff report as their own. I further move that town council adopt ordinance number 2022-5090 approving rezoning CZ-SP-21-01 as the request reasonable in the public interest because it will likely promote multifamily housing in select areas and be located and designed to create good multifamily places with quality exterior materials, open spaces, and facades.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Matthews, and Mr. Vance, I believe, seconded the motion. So the motion is properly before the council at this time. I'm not looking to prolong this, but just before we vote, if there's any other point that wants to be made at this point, I'll hear that and then we'll vote. Anybody?
I'd like to make several points is that, yes, this is a difficult piece of property that is being proposed to be developed with a lot of areas which constrict the type of design that's going on, and the type of plan that's being proposed now with the unknowns, I think is suitable for what it is now, and with that understanding, knowing that this will operate even without the BRT, when the BRT is not a critical point, but it'll be a good to have aspect for the full design. And I just wanted to make that point.
Okay, thanks, sir. Wait a minute. Any other comment?
Yeah, and to Mr. Vance's point, for what's there now, but we shouldn't be approving for what's there now. We need to approve for what's coming. There's no sense of urgency on the part of the applicant to come at this time with this project. They could have waited when there was more certainty, but we've been put in a position to make a very difficult decision on a project that is not going to be the best use of this site when BRT comes in, which it probably will. We have to operate under the presumption that these things will happen because that's the way we operate. We don't know when, but we know it's going to happen. And when it comes in, is this a missed opportunity for having even more housing that we'll desperately need and continue to need? Again, it's great for their now. It's not going to be great if BRT comes through. We're not going to get many opportunities as this council to make decisions that are going to shape the future of Garner. And if we continue to take every single project that is mediocre at best, and that's no offense to the developer, you drive around Wake County, there are great developments. This site is not optimally designed for what could be there and be the future of Garner. That's what we need to be considering. So I cannot vote for this.
Okay.
Can I counter that, Mr. Mayor, in reference to what is being said? And when it pertains to transportation projects, nothing is really guaranteed, even if it's on the books, that it's going to come on schedule or whenever. These, for example, just like the 70 bridge that we have, that was 50 bridge that's over 70, was supposed to be, that was funded and was ready. Right away was purchased and ready to go, but then everything stopped and we're still in a holding pattern years later. I hear what the argument is in reference to the possibility of it coming, but that is a possibility of coming. I hope it does. But the question becomes as to when it comes, and if this is suitable for what is happening now, in my opinion, and if it's appropriate now for it to be in its place. Yes, it has a lot of constraints, but in my opinion, it's the best design for what is being proposed at this particular time.
Okay, we're about to exhaust our time, I think, for that. Was there anything else you want to say? Okay.
And well, here's
One more
where
chance here.
Mr. Dillinger's missed opportunity is, I mean, it's up there just in glaring, and I'm really disappointed that it looks like this is going to pass. Because I think it's not the best use it's not what we can have. And when our friend from the Wake County Tax Office talked to us before, and I asked the question, per square foot in Wake County, new multifamily is the highest tax value in Wake County. So if it was 4 to 6 stories high, you're maximizing that footprint even more. We're not maximizing the footprint. We're just taking what is today, let's approve it. You don't have to prove it. It's been holding the earth together all these years, it'll keep holding it together. It's not going to go anywhere. So you want to do it, it's a gateway. Think of that. You're coming from Raleigh to Garner on the bus rapid transit. It's going to be a gateway. Is that what you want there? I agree with Mr. Dillinger. This is not the best use of the project. And you'll be going by in 5 or 6 or 7 years when it gets built and saying, man, we missed that opportunity.
Okay.
We got to look higher.
All
You have to
right.
set the goal higher. You can't say, well, that's today. We'll just do it for today. Gray's opinion.
Mr. Mayor, call for the question.
All right. Questions has been properly called for. I think we've exhausted most of our comments on this. So the motion before you is approval of ordinance 2021. I believe it's 5090. Did I cite that correctly? So, council members, if you favor the motion that is before you this time, I will ask you to vote aye.
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 If you oppose the motion that is before you this time, I'll ask you to vote no.
No.
Okay. Should I call the roll, even though I believe I can declare the results of the vote anyway? Go ahead. We'll call the roll just for the record, if you don't mind.
Vance.
Aye.
Councilmember Dellinger.
No.
Councilmember Matthews.
Aye.
Councilmember Singleton.
No.
Councilmember Behringer.
Okay, I declare that the vote is 3 in favor, 2 opposed, and the motion carries. Thank you, council, for your lively discussion. I appreciate all the viewpoints. Not an easy decision, not one that we often always disagree on, but thank you for your patience and the information you shared here. We'll operate on the premise that going forward, this will work as it will work, and
We'll see you back here shortly for I believe we have to do a special use permit for the number of units, so we'll be back in a couple of weeks. And I do want to reiterate that we will do a first-class project that you guys will be proud of when you go by. I know some of you don't feel that way today, but I promise you when you go by, you'll be proud of what you see. Thank you.
thanks, sir. All right, I appreciate it. Sure enough. Okay, we can probably, council, get to the other items there. I will, if you have a desire for a recess at this time, we could probably take about a 5 to 10 minute recess. What do you think? No? Keep moving? Keep moving, okay. All right, thank you, gentlemen. The next 2 items, our town attorney has information for us. So I will recognize her at this time for item number 2.
Thank you, Mayor and members of Town Council. Item number 2 is the compliance with Senate Bill 300 criminal and civil penalty amendments. And this is, I think, the 4th time in a little over a month that I've talked to you about this. But I'm just going to highlight a couple of the changes made since the public hearing on December 21st. In response to your concerns about the amount of civil penalties, you'll see in section 1-8 that there is the escalating civil penalty starting at $100, going to $200 for the second violation, then to $300, and then to $500 for all the subsequent violations of the same ordinance provision that would occur in a rolling 12-month period. To be consistent with the increase in the civil penalties, everywhere that there's a misdemeanor, the new law defaults this at $50, but you can go up to $500 if it specifies in the ordinance. So as you'll see, I've put that to $100 where it either didn't specify, where in the past it didn't specify it, or if it was a $25 or $50. There were a few places in the existing Code of Ordinances that had a higher starting penalty, and I left those starting at the higher amounts. And those are basically the only changes that were made to the ordinance since the public hearing on the 21st. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have at this point.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Jones.
Don't believe there's any members of the public, again, that, there were no members of the public at the public hearing to comment, and I haven't received any questions or comments since that time.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Attorney Jones? From anybody? It seems to me to be well done. The information is before us there, so you're asked to approve ordinance 2022-5091, I believe it is.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the motion before you, would you vote aye?
Aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposition, no. Thank you, counsel. It's passed unanimously. Attorney Jones, we'll recognize you again for the next item.
Thank you. The next item, in conjunction with the Criminal Justice Reform Bill that we spoke about just before, is amendments to Chapter 7 of the Town Code of Ordinances relating to minimum housing. Because minimum housing is authorized under now Chapter 160D, it did require a public hearing. So that was done on the 21st again. Again, I have not received any comments or questions from the public on this. There were a couple of questions that Councilman Dellinger made about some timing deadlines in section 7-16. I went back and checked. It seems a little odd that you have to file your appeal within 15 days, but you can ask for a stay within 30 days. That is the same language that's in 160D, so I did not make any changes to that. So basically, there are no changes since the public hearing version on December 21st. And again, I would ask you to, I would request that you adopt these amendments.
Okay, and you've already stated it, but it goes without saying, I guess, that what we're voting on tonight will become the final procedures here, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Questions for Ms. Jones on this issue? Anybody?
Do a quick question.
Okay.
Were there any other clarifications that were needed on the dwelling unit language? Because I know you mentioned that it was vague in 160D. Did we just maintain the vagueness that is consistent with the state law?
Right. At this time, we're still waiting for the General Assembly to decide on a definition of those or decide on different definitions in different contexts. So the language that I've put in there is subject to the restriction to show that we intend to comply with that provision. But these definitions are not inconsistent with any of the other definitions of dwelling or dwelling unit that are found within various provisions of the general statutes.
Thank you.
Okay. So motion's in order to approve ordinance 2022-5092.
Second.
Okay, motion properly made and seconded. All right, if you are in favor of this motion, would you vote aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And there is no opposition, so it passes. I'm reminding myself that we added an item here, and Mr. Beck has been waiting, I guess I should say patiently out there, but he's had to wait, I guess. So, Mr. Beck, I'll recognize you at this time for the information you want to share with us.
Thank you. Good evening to everyone and Happy New Year.
Sure.
I first want to apologize for bringing this as an add-on item, but with the holidays and things, the timing didn't quite work out. We want to go ahead and try to expedite everything with the audit and finalize everything for the last fiscal year. So I'm going to pull up a copy of the amended audit contract that we're going to present. So there are a couple of changes to the original contract, which one is on the timeline. So the original due date was October 31st, which is by statute, that's when audits are due. The state typically grants you a grace period to December, and then if it's not in by December, you have to amend your contract, and that's what we're doing here. The reason for that is we had an issue with our OPEB report, which is our actuarial report on the cost of the retiree benefits that we provide. So we have to contract with a third party to do that report every year as part of the audit. There's quite a bit of information from that report that goes into that feeds into the audit report. And the current actuary that we use for that is on about a 10 to 12 week time frame to turn that report around. And we were a little bit later than expected getting the information to them, and so with the turnaround time, we had to kind of wait a while to get that report. So that's the reason for the extension on the timeline. You'll also see that there's a modification to the fee. The original fee was $31,000. The new fee is $36,000. The reason for that is because the original quote, the price for the audit, was based on doing one what's called a single audit, which is where the auditors do a little more in-depth review on any kind of monies you've received, state or federal monies. And so we have the Powell bill money, which always qualifies for that type of audit every year. So that is one that we know we're going to have to do. And when they price the audit, they price to do just one of those single audits. Well, because of the coronavirus relief funds that we received from Wake County that were pass-through monies, that graduated to the level of needing another single audit that was not in their original quote to us. So that's why you see the fee go up, and we're probably going to see that in future years, that the cost is going to go up a little bit because of the ARP funds that we have now as well. So the audit work is completed now. We have it penciled in to have the auditors here at the next meeting to do the presentation to you, but we do have to submit this to the LGC as a revision. So that's what we're bringing tonight, is asking approval of this amended contract, and we'll get all the signatures on it and submit it to the LGC.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Beck. I'll ask you just quickly, and it has an obvious answer, I think, but I guess in your professional judgment, the extension and or the modified fee, the amount is reasonable from your perspective?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay. All right, just for the record. Any questions for Mr. Beck? So what?
I'd like to just scroll down so we can.
Yeah, if you will, Dave, could you scroll down? We can't see what's below there.
question, and I don't know if I missed it. What was the reason for not getting the information in time?
So there was a missed communication from the actuary. So typically they will send a direct email to me to let me, it's like an invitation that if you intend to use them for the next fiscal year, they give you all the forms to fill out, let you know what information needs to be submitted back to them. I didn't receive that direct communication, and it was a little bit later before the realization was made that that communication had been sent out, but for whatever reason, we did not receive it here. So we were a little bit behind the 8 ball on gathering our information, and then with the time frame being 10 to 12 weeks, that kind of put us behind. The time frame, the 10 to 12 weeks, is kind of a battle sometimes that other folks have encountered as well. So I've actually reached out to some different actuaries that may be able to turn that around quicker, a little more personal service from a smaller firm than what we receive now.
We put some sort of system in place to make sure that doesn't happen again.
I do, yeah. I have a recurring reminder for myself now as far as when that information should be available.
Okay. Any other question for Mr. Beck? Anybody? Okay, you've heard the request. Let me see. Well, you're the finance director, so you know where to find the extra funds for this. I don't know if it's somewhere within the budget from an excess account or.
Yeah, we should be able to transfer it within the existing finance department budget.
Okay. All right. So the request is for the council to approve this change and the additional funds that come with that. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I hate to be can you continue to scroll? I like to read what I'm voting on.
That's 3 pages. I'll show you. The other 2 pages are just signature pages, but this is the end of the actual text.
Can you go back up to the top again, the very top? I love this language. Whereas the primary government unit, the town of Garner, and I love this word, discreetly presented component unit. I mean, I just like, don't know who comes up sometime with descriptions. Discreetly presented component unit. To be sure, there's another way to say that, but anyway, I just thought that was great reading. Discreetly presented component unit. I know this is a standard form and so forth. I'm not making fun of that. It's just sometimes you look at these forms and think, who sat around and dreamed this stuff up? But anyway.
Probably the DQ.
DPCU.
Yeah.
Word of the day. Discreetly presented component unit.
There you go.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the recommendation of Mr. Beck and amend the contract to the audit accounts.
Second.
Okay. Motion made, properly made. Any questions? Hearing none. If you favor the motion, would you please vote aye?
Aye.
Aye.
There's no opposition or vote no. Okay. Okay, Mr. Beck. Thank you, sir. And sounds like you have some protocols in the future that'll probably obviate the need for this again.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
But thank you, sir. Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate your patience in waiting. I don't know how we could have done it differently. Okay. Council, I believe that covers all of the agenda items, including the added item. I'll go to committee reports. I'm not aware of any. Anybody have any? None? Okay. Manager reports. You have at least 3 there. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Town Council, you have the Garner info in the back of your packet, just about 3 items there, fairly minor. We're working on those. The other thing related to Garner info is there's been somewhat of a glitch in the program for Android devices, and we've been in contact with the vendor, and they haven't come up with the fix yet. I guess they're working on it, but we did put out an announcement today on our social media to alert any customers that have the Android devices that is currently not working on those devices, and that the the best way now to enter a request would be to go to the website. We do have redundant services for Garner Info through devices, through the website, through the internet. So they are able to put a service request in that way, and we'll just keep working with the vendor to see if they get it resolved. Could come to a point where we might look at different options if it doesn't get resolved, but we're not there yet. But we'll just wanted the public to know, so if they have any issues with that program, that app, that's the reason why. And
Okay.
I don't know all the technical things about it, but it has something to do with the way the program caches information, CACHE, cache, information, and how it responds to requests. So we'll update you when and if that gets resolved. The other thing I had, just a reminder, the special council session for January 13th to talk about the park planning, Meadowbrook and Jurgen parks. And we also will talk about some of the capital projects, have a discussion about some of the capital projects in the bond and some of the ones that are just completed. And then lastly, the Mlk Celebration, that committee has decided that will be a virtual presentation again this year. It will be premiered on YouTube on January 16th. So they have decided not to do that in person due to COVID concerns. So.
I confirm, Mr. Dickerson, the January 13th meeting is here in the training room, correct? Okay, just one, at 8:30 to 1:30. Okay,
Yes.
just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Dixon?
That's it.
Okay, any reports from our
No.
attorney tonight? Okay.
The only other thing I would add real quick is we have been talking about the council retreat as a staff and what items, could possibly present it just as related to some of the concerns and questions we've had about, Garner and the future and things like that. So I'll be in contact with you by the end of the week. We got staff looking at some items and giving some input. So I'll be in contact with you soon about what some potential items could be for the council retreat, and then get your input on what you would like to see. And then we'll decide how to go forward with that.
We still submit some, if we have an idea on something, I'm not saying I do, but if there's something I want us to look at, submit to you guys.
Sure, you can send it to me.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and I hope to be having a brief discussion with him tomorrow, sort of around those issues as well. By the way, when you mentioned, this gets into council comments, reports, and I won't be long with it, but you mentioned the Android and the issue there. I believe I heard on the news today that, I don't know how many of you had Blackberries. Anybody remember those devices? Mm-hmm. I think they're officially out of operation now, or they're...
Tomorrow, I think.
Is it tomorrow? Yeah.
That used to be the thing.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, it used
So
to be
at any
the
rate,
thing.
times do change. Okay, we'll go around the ring here. Mr. Matthews, I'll start with you this time.
Yes, sir. When the parade come about, and we did have a wonderful parade, by the way. Thank you, Mr. Dillinger, on that one there, and all the volunteers. But it was mentioned that being short staff on Parks and Rec, and I took the opportunity to kind of look at some of the openings we're trying to fill and hire. And I spoke to a lot of young people, and after looking at what the pay scale is there, I see why nobody is applying. When you get down to $8 and something an hour, I think we need to take a look at some of those pay scales with Parks and Rec, because you can go anywhere right now and get a job for $10. Matter of fact, they're looking for more than that now, and that's why there's so many. And that pay scale, especially with some of the more entry-level type positions there that we need. A lot of them are more seasonal, but we need to take a look at that and bring that into where it needs to be, because we'll never fill them at that rate there. And that's the feedback I'm getting from a lot of young people. I'm trying to encourage them to, take an opportunity. And so if we could do that, Mr. Mayor and staff, that would be appreciated. And that's all I got, sir.
Okay.
Happy New Year.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Singleton.
Yes, I believe, Mr. Matthews, I think you have to be 18 to do those jobs, which sometimes I wonder why we may not go back to 17, but anyway, because my daughter asked about working at the rec center when they were looking at people out front there, but you had to be 18, so that's another thing to look at. I was told, I've asked multiple times, and they have to be 18, but I've asked multiple times.
I think that's on some of the positions that have certain requirements of operating the facility.
I think there's some part-time camp positions that you could be younger.
Camp, but you want to work at camp. That's the whole key. Yeah. So anyway, I want to make sure we let let All-Star know they did a good job with the holidays and everything, and compacted. They still stayed on schedule and did a good job. I think I don't know if they're up to par completely caught up on the lease, but I know that from a couple people who commented to me, somebody asked me a question and said, guys, they've been sitting there so-and-so, and I told them why. 2 days later, they picked them up and they contacted me and said, hey, they got my lease today. I said, well, they're trying the best they can. They were behind.
Still getting some questions. They did put an additional truck into service, and they have been working weekends to get caught up. So it's extremely heavy this year.
We had the dry spell, so everybody got them down all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And now, of course, it's been wet here the last couple of weeks, but yes, everyone got out to the curb at the same time, and the volume was incredible. So they've done a best they could job with what they had. That's all I have for right now.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Behringer.
Yes, I have 2 things. There is a tree hanging over some utility lines in front of TT&E scrap metal. It's been there for quite a while, and it's really not terribly noticeable until you ride up down the road some, but it's hanging over the lines, and it needs to come down. Part of a tree anyway. It's dead and just broken and hanging over the utility lines. And interesting, Mr. Singleton complimented All-Star. I'd have some concerns in my neighborhood. Lately, I saw it again today, a trash can not picked up. The wind blew it down. There were 4 trash cans out there in front of some apartments. The wind blew one of them down, and the wind was horrible this morning. And when the trash truck came by, they picked up everything, all the containers around it. They did not pick that one up. I realize that's not their responsibility, but those were extenuating circumstances, and the person who put it out there didn't throw it out there and lay it down. So I think that maybe some guidance to them about understanding when they can be helpful, and as they put the trash containers back, they didn't place them, they tossed them. And so that's just some guidance would be helpful there.
Yes, we've already been in contact with the owner, the contractor.
This was another thing today from what I told you. Oh, I called you this morning. Okay.
Yep.
All
That's
right,
already
good.
been. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger, anything?
Nothing other than just briefly it'd be helpful for the manager's report in the future, and we can probably talk about this during the retreat, I know I've looked at some of the stuff Fuquay puts together, and they sort of have visual representations, the number of permits that have been issued sort of by month, and I think that might be just useful for condensing some of the information on issued housing permits and that kind of stuff to kind of see trajectory and numbers. Not every council meeting, but again, kind of on a monthly basis, seeing what that number looks like. And I think we'd be probably surprised at, what that looks like. So I think this is something to look at in the future.
Yeah, we include an activity report every month, but you're saying you would like to see it like compared from month to month?
Just
more graphic.
Very simple,
okay.
Bar graph.
Yep.
Going back maybe 12 months or something like that.
Okay, was that it, Mr. Dellinger? Yes. Okay, and Mr. Vance?
Happy New Year.
Okay. I would remind council, you got an email, maybe you got it later today, but February is the celebration of Black History Month, an important occasion for us, for all towns. And the sort of, I guess you'd call it traditional celebration has taken place with an event at Senior Center the information that came out today is that it's going to take place at the GPAC on the 9th of February. Is that a Wednesday? I'm trying to remember. At any rate, it's usually around lunchtime. Is that right?
Correct. It's
Okay.
normally at dinner. It was
Yeah.
normally during the lunch at the senior center.
Right. So, council, be aware of that. We'll expect to have a proclamation there declaring that and some information about it. I would encourage you to come along and, if you can, and be at that event and support that for sure. And as has already been mentioned, our retreat is soon coming up. So if you have an item, let the town manager know. We have, I think, a lot on our plate as we start the new year, particularly with the bond approval and also the I want to call it the CARES money. That's not it. What is it that the federal government has?
ARP.
ARP.
ARPA, some,
Yes.
and
Okay.
the act at the end.
Yeah. All right. And with that, that's all I have at this point, I believe. I'll get back with council on a couple of other matters later on. So, anything else? Anything from you, John?
Lake County schools are delayed 2 hours tomorrow.
Okay, you
Got the message rival sitting here. I'm on the
Oh,
call since our daughter's in school, so.
okay.
Black ice.
Yep.
I expect in the northern and northwest part of the county is a lot different than it is down here.
Sure, you're right, probably. Yeah, sure enough. So, okay.
Mr. Mayor, just if you did not see an email I sent to you earlier today, I just resent some links to how council can access some of the planning documents that are prepared for you, knowing that you had new devices. So if anybody has any trouble using those, please let me know, and we'll be glad to help you out with getting those saved so that you can access them on a regular basis.
Yeah, I did see that, and I may be raising my hand soon to say, hey, come give me a little tutorial or whatever. Thank you, Mr. Hodges. Okay. All right, council, well, thank you for your time and for your diligence tonight. We finished in about 2 hours, it appears. Again, I want to take this time to wish you all a happy new year. For me, I'm reminded that I've completed essentially half of my time as your mayor for a 4-year term. So I hope that the next 2 years can be very productive. The past 2 have been in some ways, but they've been rather unusual. But that's been true for all of us. And we always talk about Mr. COVID for those things. So at any rate, I'm optimistic about the future, certainly for our town. I think there are a lot of good things happening and going on. And I hope and expect that'll continue. And I know this council will work hard to ensure that that happens. So again, I thank you for your efforts and for your service. With that, I will entertain a motion that we adjourn. Okay, motion made and properly seconded. All in favor of adjournment at this time, please vote aye.
Aye.
And it is so ordered. Declare that we are officially adjourned. Thank you all.